Broadcasting live from the LoadingReadyRun orbiting underground moon base, Delta. It's the LRRcast. Broadcasting live from the LoadingReadyRun orbiting underground moon base, Delta. It's the LRRcast.
Am I doing this right?
It's like a diamond.
That's a different thing, James. That's no. See, middle fingers touching the opposing middle finger knuckle.
Okay.
Oh.
And then there.
Pointer finger steepled. There you go.
Triangle.
Yeah.
And then
Woo.
surprise!
Go.
Surprise! Surprise!
It's actually
Now it's a
W.
lambda.
Yeah. Hey guys, welcome to the very first LRRcast in Moonbase Delta, and our new lovely set.
Yeah.
We've got shelves and a new TV and some cool new stuff on the shelves. So maybe we'll have to do another "What's on Our Shelf" episode.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be fun. That was a fun podcast. I like that one.
Some things are the same. Some things are different.
Some things might change.
Yeah. Some things
This is incredibly like. Oh, we have the shelves up and we have to film a feed dump. We should put stuff on them yesterday. So they'll change. But overall, I think it looks pretty sweet. I'm a big fan of Spoopifer.
Yeah.
Right back here. Just hanging out for no reason whatsoever.
I think we need something else spoopy on this side.
Yeah, maybe
we
can
can have creepy doll.
Ooh, we need a creepy doll the same size.
Yeah, I don't know if
that,
creepy
as
doll
that
could fit.
We'll just need to commission a new creepy doll.
The
Creepy doll fits anywhere. Under cracks in the door.
Yeah.
That's true.
You know.
So we are here today to talk to you about the best of 2015, and that could be movies or TV shows or albums or video games or it doesn't matter. Whatever we saw that we kind of liked in 2015, we can talk about it here. Also, it doesn't have to be from 2015. It could be things that we discovered in 2015.
Yeah.
Some things maybe we really learned to love.
There's definitely going to be some of that for me, I know.
Yeah. And that's fine. Anything that you've discovered in the last year is good to go. Cam is more prepared than any of us. He has stuff written down. So I'm just going to go with Cam on everything. I'm also going to call this episode basically Best of 2015 Mad Star Wars Fury. Because was there anything else to talk about other than Mad Max and Star Wars when it comes to movies?
A few things. There was one other movie that I really liked. It was a short film.
So, okay. Well, let's talk about movies.
Okay,
right.
yeah. Let's go right into. I think Fury Road and The Force Awakens were both like
Pretty
really
much
fun,
the best
blockbuster,
movies. Yeah.
dominant films.
Well, not
And
only,
it,
but
and it was fun to have that they were blockbusters that were actually good
films.
Yeah.
Like they meant more than just a summer popcorn flick, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
the Star Wars wasn't even a summer flick. It came out a couple weeks ago. But I think those movies mean a lot more to a lot of people than something like, the first Transformers movie. That's like a classic summer popcorn movie, in my opinion. It's silly, it's stupid, it makes a buttload of money, it's fun, but I don't really remember it. I remember Mad Max.
Yeah.
And I remember Star Wars. Now, I've seen Star Wars twice since it's come out, so obviously I'm going to remember it, but I think those films are a lot more important than something
Yeah,
like...
I mean, I don't think that I was maybe as super big on Mad Max as maybe some people were. Like, I thought it was a good movie. I really enjoyed it. I don't know if I necessarily like it wasn't like a movie that I have a great desire to like see over and over and over again.
That's fair.
But I definitely liked it. I mean, it's if you want ridiculous car-based action sequences, it's really the go-to place.
Well, I think, especially for Star Wars and Mad Max, those movies, I think, did a really good job for girls. I think I saw a lot of women get really excited about those two movies.
Right.
Because they were well represented in them.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's why they were as important as they are.
And one point that I thought was really made well recently was that representation of women in media isn't just good for women and girls.
No.
It's good for boys
Yeah.
because
Just more different stuff.
Well, different,
Yeah,
but it
different
also
stuff and-
shows boys that girls are just as capable
yeah,
as a human being as
Yeah.
they are, right?
yeah, and worthy of consideration,
and maybe
worthy of
if
being, heroic.
yeah, and if they aren't being taught that lesson, by their peers, their or their parents or their teachers, at least they can go to the movies and be like, "Oh shit,
Yeah,
girls can kick ass too. That's neat."
yeah, yeah,
I mean, Fury Road was particularly interesting because it sort of had both. It had Furiosa, and then it also had the sort of brides who were in a very sort of typical role that you would see in something like that, where it'd be like, oh no, these people that Mad Max is going to come and save. And
Right.
it turned out it was actually Furiosa who would come and save them, which is cool.
Yeah.
But it was neat to sort of have that juxtaposition and then showing them sort of coming to their own a little bit as well.
yeah.
Over the course of the movie.
Their talents and skill sets from before they were sex slaves
Yeah.
coming into the forefront again and becoming a part of their own liberation.
Yep.
And also from totally aside from the content of it, from like a filmmaking standpoint, it was neat to see a movie done the way that Fury Road was done, which was very much like sort of the singular vision
yeah,
of the director, and doing a lot of things differently than a lot of movies, not using as much CG, keeping things really gritty and
Right.
and realistic and stuff. It was neat to see that kind of a movie be so successful, in the hopes that maybe that will be something that could be pushed in future years.
Yep.
Yeah, and one of the criticisms I've seen leveled against Fury Road quite a lot was the idea that not a lot happens in it. They drive
Right.
out and they come back.
Yeah.
And it is a fairly simple story.
Yeah.
Certainly,
But
yeah.
it's
Simple
a
doesn't mean-
surprisingly layered moral story
Yeah.
as well. Like when Max tells Furiosa, 100 days across, 100 days out there, the only thing you'll find is more salt. Right? That's a metaphor,
Yeah.
right?
For sugar, right?
And yeah, definitely. So yeah, coming back to the place that you started off and fighting to make it a place worth inhabiting,
Yeah.
right, is not a simple moral concept,
Right.
right? Like, Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Narnia. C.S. Lewis took like 9 books to tell that story, right?
That's true.
And there were barely any flamethrower cars.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
in Lion, the
Yeah.
Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Yeah.
So far less good.
And I mean, I don't want to get into Star Wars right now. I could do an entire podcast on that one.
We should do an entire podcast.
We
on
probably
that
should.
one.
I would like to. But it was. I really loved it. I thought it served its audience incredibly well. I think it did a great job for both new and old fans, which I think was kind of an impossible feat. A lot of people are kind of up in arms about calling it like a reboot. But what I think I like about it is that it can act kind of as both.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be a reboot for you if you don't need it to be, but it certainly, like, I think you could show that film to an 8-year-old boy or girl who has no prior knowledge to the Star Wars universe, or at least maybe tangentially through, what little their parents have talked about it. But like, you could take an 8 or 9-year-old to that movie, and I think their mind would just be completely blown, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's amazing that they were able to create a movie that serves both those purposes. I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Like, man.
And I also think that there's, we'll have to see this if it gets borne out in the later movies, but I think there's more going on than just a reboot.
I think, yeah,
there.
absolutely.
Like that this is a movie that, like, the villains are rebooting previous villains.
Yeah.
Right? And they are kind of cosplaying as the Empire.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
And everything is taking place in the ruins of Empire, which I think is interesting and fertile, and I'd love to talk about that more. But that isn't just a simple reboot, because it's very consciously taking place in the that world.
Yeah.
Right. I think it has more in common with reboot, the new Evangelion movies
Right.
that have been coming out over the last several years that are not just a reboot.
I mean, the thing that really struck me about it was something that I think was really missing from the prequel trilogy is they really managed to capture sort of the like pulpiness of the. I mean, like the original movies are sort of put on this pedestal and stuff, but they are like in the same way as like the Indiana Jones was the same deal, where it was supposed to be like kind of this throwback to drive-in pulp kind of movie stuff,
like
space opera, kind of ridiculous, and they really in the prequel trilogy it was like political machinations and trade embargoes and this stuff, and whereas in the Force Unleashed it's like good guys, bad guys, go at it like it's you can imagine the like the original thing with the like episode. Like you can imagine.
The serial.
You can imagine it as a serial. Yeah.
Like the Star Wars A New Hope was advertised as being kind of like, first there was Buck Rogers, then there was Flash Gordon, now there's Luke Skywalker. Like it took place explicitly in the context of these previous science fiction serials. Right, and was kind of like posited as their inheritor, and it's always operated in the mode of like the postmodern pastiche, where you're taking all the things and you put them together, right, and you're self-consciously operating in a mode that is aware of all the things that your fans like,
right,
and The Force Awakens calls back to that, only incorporating itself into the mix,
right,
which I think is interesting. And again, I would love to talk about that.
Yeah, I honestly think we could do a whole. So really quickly, a couple other ones that I'm now thinking about. We would be remiss to not talk about Marvel movies. Both Avengers: Age of Ultron and Ant-Man were our offerings this year. Age of Ultron, 6 months later, 8 months later, however long it's been, it kind of fell a little flat.
I actually just watched it again recently because it showed up on Netflix.
Yep.
And it was like it's fine, but it's not nowhere near the first Avengers.
No,
and certainly there have been better
Marvel movies in general. And it sounds like Joss Whedon had a hell of a time with that movie. It sounds like Marvel kind of messed him up a little bit on that one, which sucks. And I hope that it's a rare misstep on their part. I hope that they can sort of come back from that. And Ant-Man,
I really liked. I really liked Ant-Man.
I liked Ant-Man a lot. I've also recently rewatched it. It's good. Again, it's not quite as good as a lot of the other Marvel films out there, but it's certainly on par with some of them. It didn't come out this year, but just while we're talking about Marvel films, I rewatched Iron Man 3 the other day. That movie, I think, got better for me on the longer it's been since I've seen it in theaters.
See that one again.
It was really good. I really enjoyed it. But those were the two Marvel movies this year.
Right.
What was you said there was an independent film.
Well, okay. It was a short animated film called The World of Tomorrow, made by Don Hertzfeldt, who you might be familiar with. He did Rejected.
And,
and it's wonderful. It's available. I think it's only on Vimeo, but it's one of the ones where he's kind of doing this thing where he's constantly like updating it and refining it bit by bit.
Oh, so, that's cool.
You can kind of like pay to see it as it is right now, as you move towards like
that's cool
a completion on it. But like I think it's like $10 to see it for a month.
Nice.
But it's really wonderful in his style, and if you have seen his recent like kind of trilogy of short animated films, what were they? Everything is Going to Be Okay. I Am So Proud of You, and I forget the third one. But those are also really good.
Okay.
It's kind of more in that frame, but it's a science fiction story about traveling through time.
Cool.
Yeah, I highly recommend it.
Okay.
I mean, this is this year I was quite heavily into sort of Netflix stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So and one of the things. So I'm pretty sure these are not 2015, but there's a couple of really great documentaries that I saw on Netflix about kind of There's one about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Okay.
Like going all the way back to Eastman and Laird and the building of the original or designing of the original characters and the comics and just the insane explosion that was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles marketing and all this stuff and then going all the way to the to the first movies and the insane stuff they had to do for those.
Cool.
With the guys basically dying in the
in the
turtle suits.
Yeah.
And touching a little bit on the new Michael Bay stuff, but it was neat to sort of to see something like that. And then the other one, there's a wonderful documentary on Netflix about the island of Dr. Moreau.
Okay.
Oh,
It's called it's something like the horrible or the like. I don't know what it's, but it's about the making of the movie The Island of Dr. Moreau, which is, if you don't know, is famous. It's a famous movie because it is so incredibly terrible.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the story about all the ridiculous stuff that was going on behind the scenes for it. It was one of it was one of the last movies that
Godfather.
Wow, can't remember his
I think it's right there.
Marlon Brando.
Yeah.
There it is.
Wow.
Okay.
One of the last movies that Brando did, but it had him and
Val Kilmer.
Yep.
and they were basically both the biggest assholes
Yeah.
on set that you can ever imagine.
And kind of competing with each other, I've heard.
Yeah. Like there's a couple of times. There's times when like neither would come out of their trailer until the other one had come out first.
What?
Like just ridiculous stuff. Like Marlon Brando would just be like rewriting the script because he didn't like things.
Wow.
Most of Marlon Brando's role in that was just because like all the weird stuff in that with like he's wearing like white face. He's got like the little guy with him, which was the world's smallest man.
Right.
Was somebody that Marlon Brando met and was like, this guy's great. We should get him in. We should have him in the movie. I want him in every scene that I'm in. And the director's like, he's not an actor. And Marlon Brando's like, it's fine. I'll teach him how to act. And he's like, but he can't speak English. It's like, I'll overdub him. It'll be great. What? There's already a guy like, and so they just gave him the role of like another actor who was like, I was supposed to be. It was like a big part. I was supposed to be like the assistant to the doctor, and I just. The smallest man in the world took my part. Anyway, it's an amazing documentary, riveting. I highly recommend checking it out. They switched directors halfway through because the original director had like a mental breakdown and went like walkabout, and he got banned from the set, and they like sent him away on a. They were like, "Here's a plane ticket. You gotta leave."
Go.
Right.
And then they got word that he did not use the plane ticket. So they're like, he's still somewhere here, but we don't know where. And he actually ended up, he's actually in the movie because he snuck onto set dressed as one of the monsters with a mask on.
What? That's kind of amazing.
Anyway, check it out. I highly recommend it.
So, just because I wanted to remember some of the movies that came out this year, did anybody see Inside Out?
Oh,
no,
yes.
I didn't.
Actually, yes. I highly recommend Inside Out. It's a wonderful movie, not only because it's just a Pixar movie, a good kids movie, but it's actually got some interesting stuff about. It actually has surprisingly nuanced look at some kind of depression and that kind of stuff, which I thought was quite cool.
How about Until Star Wars came out? The biggest movie of last year is a movie that I still have not seen. I don't know if either of you seen it. Do you know which that is?
It's the new Jurassic Park movie.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't
Did
seen that.
either of you see that one?
No.
Nope. Okay.
I saw the trailer where the kids were asking, like, well, if they're the betas, referring to the Velociraptor, who's the alpha?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, you're looking at him. And I'm like, nope.
Like, it's the kind of movie, like, I would totally be up for seeing that.
Yep.
But nobody was like, hey, we're going to go see it. You want to come? And
I
was
just
like,
didn't care. I just didn't care. How about...
This is what Matt was good for.
Yeah, Matt was good
He
for
was
that.
He was always good at, like, getting together. It's like, we're going to go see this movie.
We all saw The Martian.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good.
I
like
that
The Martian.
One.
I thought it was fine. Like,
I had problems with it, but like I can see why people enjoyed it.
Yep.
My big complaint with The Martian is that for a movie like about a guy that it calls itself The Martian, right, implying the guy who lives on Mars, who is from Mars, who inhabits Mars, he has no introspection at all about his situation at any point during the movie. Like, he has no internal life.
that's fair.
Like, there's no... I got a lot of impression that, like, everyone was high-fiving each other about teabagging Mars, essentially.
Right.
Being like, yeah, we did it!
Yeah.
All right! We conquered Mars! And no insight at all as to why we want to do that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, which I thought was kind of like a natural place for this film to go. Right? Like, you got more internal life in Castaway.
Right.
Right. Actually, I think I got more internal life in Mad Max.
All right.
Yeah, but like you're the most isolated human being that has ever existed, and you're just like, man, I miss ketchup.
Hey, man, you would miss ketchup too.
I would miss ketchup. I would probably also, try to think about some things.
He was busy growing potatoes and stuff. All right. How about, this is one of the ones that I didn't watch that Sicario. Did anybody catch that one?
No.
No? Okay, that's high on my list of movies to watch for this year. Another one that I have yet to see, which is just terrible, Spectre. I haven't seen the new James Bond movie. Either of you?
I
seen
saw it.
Both
Yeah.
of you are just being like,
Yeah. So the biggest problem I had with Bond, which I guess it doesn't really tie into other stuff that happened in 2015 because it's a little earlier, but one of the big villains in it is played by the guy who plays Moriarty in Sherlock.
Yeah.
Right.
And the problem is that he's so dumb
Yeah.
in this movie that it's so hard to be like, but he's
Sherlock's brother.
the awesome,
oh, no,
that's
Moriarty's.
awesome guy in
Yeah.
Sherlock.
He's
Yeah.
terrifying.
He's terrifying and evil. What happened?
And he's just incompetent here and like just kind of a giant pissant.
It's
Also, I loved when Blofeld, spoilers, when Blofeld reveals his hidden base to Bond, and he was like, you enter this room with like all these dudes in black turtlenecks working on computer consoles, just like down all these corridors, and he's like, behold the power of distributed computing clusters, and all these guys stand up, and you're like, I don't think that's how. I don't think that's how the Snowden leak worked. But,
All right.
okay, sure. My favorite part was when Blofeld's torturing Bond, and he's got the chair with the drills in it that are being sent into Bond's brain. Like,
Yeah.
he's drilling Bond's brain, right? And he's like, oh, when I apply this drill here, it will erase your memory of this event, right? Or if I drill at this part of your brain, it will, like, massively damage your sense of balance and sense of smell and taste and vision. And it has no effect on Bond whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I love that. Because Bond is a man who goes out into the world and gets three things. Blackout drunk, concussed, and syphilis.
so
And you're going to give him brain damage?
Or there's a lot of scar tissue around his brain that you're
like that
not
didn't
getting.
even penetrate the outer like 7 layers of scar tissue, right? Bond's brain right now is this walnut in the core, right?
Wow. All right.
Like Bond's brain is vestigial at this point.
Yeah. Looking through that list of movies, it made me realize that I have missed a lot of movies this year, and we'll need to remedy that.
Yeah.
Try to go see more movies this year. That's what we should do.
Yeah.
We got to get back
I'm
on
in
that.
favor of that.
Like
Yeah.
assembling this list, I realize how little I've read and watched this year. Like I think I've read less than half a dozen books.
I've read nothing this year.
And that's really bad because usually I'm a pretty voracious reader, but these last couple of years I haven't been reading much, and it's terrible. And then movies also. Like I've been looking at other people's top 10 lists, and I'm like, yeah, those are all movies that I really wanted to see.
I mean, what I've
well.
noticed, and I haven't made like a comprehensive list, but there's just so much really good TV these days that I actually just find myself I would rather just stay at home. And we can sort of go into TV shows now at this point, but if I'm given the option to go to a theater and pay $15 to see a movie for 2.5 hours, or sit at home and watch 10 episodes of Daredevil or Silicon Valley or Game of Thrones or Rick and Morty or Steven Universe, or I could keep going on for a long time.
Right.
There's just so much good stuff out there, and there's so much stuff that I'm not watching because I just don't have the time. I'd rather just do that. I would rather just stay at home and watch really awesome content on my own TV, on my couch with my wife and my dog, than go into a movie theater to see a movie that, I might not really actually care that much about. So,
I mean, speaking of, we were talking about the Marvel movies being a little bit disappointing. The Marvel TV shows have been knocking out of the park.
which is so impressive because they're just not given, like, Netflix. The Netflix series aside, I think are given a little bit more leeway and budget, and they can go. They're certainly a lot darker. If you've watched there's Daredevil and Jessica Jones,
Yeah.
and I haven't gotten all the way through Jessica Jones yet, but they are significantly darker
Oh yeah.
than anything else Marvel is doing, and I love them both
Also,
very
they
much.
both take place mostly at night. So
Yeah, it's
very
true.
dark.
Yeah. So
But
those
yeah, both of them really good.
both those two have been really good. Agents of Shields continues to just make me happy. Like it's not even like tremendously good television. It's just a lot of fun and goofy, and they're just doing a lot of silly things that I love, and I think that's really neat. We're about 2 weeks away from Agent Carter coming back for a second small season again, which I'm super excited about. If the next couple years we just get, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for like 4 months, and then Agent of Carter for 2 months, and then Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for another 3 or 4 months.
Agent Carter, not Agent of Carter.
Agent of Carter. I'm okay with that.
She's her own organization.
She's her own organization.
Have they done the thing in Agent Carter yet where she's like, they made the joke in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., right? It's like, do you know what S.H.I.E.L.D. stands for? Like, and he gives the acronym, and it's like, you know what that means? Like, somebody really wanted the acronym to spell
S.H.I.E.L.D., yeah.
They haven't actually made S.H.I.E.L.D. yet.
Okay.
In
because
Carter,
I
yeah.
really want the scene in Agent Carter where she's like,
where they're working out the name.
yeah, she's like, okay, we know we wanted to spell S.H.I.E.L.D.
I believe that's like this next, like from the preview stuff they've shown.
It feels like that's kind
I
of what they're
believe
going
that's
for.
that's going to be happening.
I assume that's sort of the end goal on this season.
Yeah.
Of Agent
Like, they
Carter.
just inherit a whole bunch of stationery.
Yeah.
It's like,
they have to make
S.H.I.E.L.D.
good with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, well, we don't have budget for new stationery, so we have to, whatever we name it, it has to work.
Well,
with
also,
this.
I mean, because the other thing is that Carter is, of course, not obsessed with, but was in love with Captain America.
Yeah.
Right.
S.H.I.E.L.D.
So the
kinda
S.H.I.E.L.D.
works, yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you got for TV shows?
I have 3. One,
Okay.
Steven Universe,
Yeah.
which I adore and is wonderful, and I don't know what we did to deserve this show, but it continues to be
I got it.
complex
So-
and
I got to
layered
get in
and
on that. I'm not
passionate.
You definitely need to get on it. So I love Steven Universe. I love the people who make it. I love the end result. Cartoon Network needs to figure their shit out
Oh, yeah.
and figure out a production cycle that makes sense for a cartoon. Because as much as I love the Steven bombs, and as we're recording, we're just coming out of one. We're recording this on Friday the
They
8th.
do like a bunch
there's
of
been
episodes
there's
and then
been
nothing.
a new episode every day this week. We get 5 new episodes, and after today, it's on, as they state, an indefinite hiatus. It's coming back. It's not canceled, and they're assuredly going to make more, but no idea when. And that is stupid as fuck.
Yeah.
For a cartoon series, because first off,
Is that just the? Is that like the creators are doing other stuff, or is
no, I'm pretty sure this is how Cartoon Network is ordering the show, which is incredibly stupid because the show somehow, well, not somehow, it's incredible, has gained the love of both children and adults, and children will forget about it. or they'll lose track of it. If you just show them 5 episodes and then they're like, woohoo, when's more? Next week? Nope. Next month? Nope. Later next year? Maybe.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Hopefully.
But for some reason, they've decided that it's better to burn off all the episodes one night rather than doing it once a week.
But that's not even like they did it earlier last year. They did the Stephen Bomb, and then they're like, okay, we're not going to do that again. Or at least I thought I remember hearing them. They were not going to do that again. And then late last year, they ran like 5 or 6 episodes one per week, and that was great. And then it went away, and now it's come back again in the Stephen Bomb format, which I think adults really like. I think it makes sense, sort of. And then it's going away again. And it's just like, no, stop. Like, just run this like a regular... Like, I understand that the episodes are 10 minutes long. It's not a 22-minute show. So give us, 8 weeks of episodes and then maybe like a month or 2 off. And then bring it back for another couple months. Like, just do that. Give it a regular cycle. I hate television shows that don't stick to... Like, I would rather... them just be like, we're going to give you 3 months of shows and then a year off, and then we're going to come back. Then we're going to give you 1 week of shows, and who knows when we'll be back.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
it has to be a misery for the creators.
Absolutely. You lose momentum, right? And that's the big thing. Is
also because the show happens in real time, right? Like, Steven has had 2 birthdays in January. His birthday is in January.
Yep.
Right? And we keep hitting those, but we don't know how many episodes will be in each interval.
Exactly.
Right?
So I really wish that whoever's in charge of that would figure their shit out and just give us a regular update schedule. So Steven Universe, definitely on that list.
Yeah.
Go watch it immediately. It's very good.
All right, fine.
What else you got?
Oh, excuse me. One show that got a lot of like mixed reviews that I thought was interesting and worth paying attention to is Man in the High Castle.
Okay.
Which is based on a Philip K. Dick novel that is probably Philip K. Dick's most kind of like conservative and traditional novel.
Which is what if the Japanese and Germans...
won World War II.
Yeah, had won World War II.
So it's kind of like alt history, and like it takes place in San Francisco, which is in kind of like the Japanese protectorate of the Western United States.
Yep.
And the novel has a lot to do with cultural cross-pollination and other ways of viewing the world. And the TV show does something similar, where the Man in the High Castle, the title refers to someone who is producing. In the book, it's a book called Grasshopper Lies Heavy, and in the TV show, it's newsreel film strips.
Okay.
That deal with alternate Earths.
Okay.
Right? Like, The Grasshopper Lies Heavy is a novel that is about what would happen in this world if the Allies had won World War II.
Right.
And it's not our world. It is
no,
a very
it's
different
a different world, yeah.
It's what they think would have been. It would have been like, yeah.
And the movie strips are from multitudinous different worlds, right?
Okay.
They show all kinds of different possibilities of what would have happened. And Philip K. Dick famously wrote this by consulting the I Ching, which is like the like this traditional Chinese oracle, right, where you cast these sticks and interpret them. And so he said that the I Ching wrote The Man in the High Castle.
Interesting.
It's a weird guy.
Yeah, he was a very weird guy. And when I tell you that The Man in the High Castle is his most kind of conservative and traditional novel, you have to understand that this is a novel about dimension-hopping Nazis taking over the world.
Is it good? Because I've heard it's not that good.
It is real slow.
Yeah, that is the complaint I have heard.
And I don't know if this is borne out, but what I'm getting from it is the theme of the work is that in order to coherently resist the world that you're living in, you need to be able to imagine alternatives to it.
Right.
You need to be able to conceive of a different way of being in the world in order to change the world. The Nazis and the Japanese are hunting down these film strips for reasons that they're not fully able to articulate. They just know that they're threats, and the people who are protecting them aren't protecting them for any reason that they're able to fully articulate, but they just know that they're important.
Okay.
And it's so far we haven't been revealed who they're being produced by, but the man in the high castle does not refer to the man producing them or the person producing them in the TV series. It refers to someone else, and it's a bit of a spoiler to reveal who that person is.
Okay.
But it's a man in a high castle.
Spoilers.
Literally.
Literally in a high castle. All right.
So it kind of reminded me of a Frederick Jameson essay where he's quoting somebody else who he can't place and he can't remember, but he says the reason we see a lot of apocalyptic narratives in our stories in the later half of the 20th century is because we can't, like he says, it's easier to imagine the end of the world than it is to imagine the end of capitalism.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Right, we can imagine a zombie apocalypse seems plausible, but we can't imagine dismantling, capitalism.
Right.
Right. And I think that's relevant here. I'd give it another season, maybe.
Okay.
I'm going to continue watching it because I want to see if these themes become explicit and if they become relevant. But I think it's interesting. The actors do a decent job with what they're given. There's a lot in it. There's a lot implicit in it. Yeah, it's a solid B- series, I would say, that has a lot of potential.
Okay.
The other series that I've been watching recently is a new sci-fi series based on a series of novels called The Expanse. And this has to do with kind of near future. Humanity has colonized the solar system, and there's a power struggle between Earth and Mars over resources out in the belt.
Okay.
And Earth is kind of undergoing ecological collapse and is critically overpopulated, and Mars is innovative and dynamic and is very good at using its resources and it's technologically advanced. And the Belters are, there's I think, I'm not sure if it's stated explicitly, but it's implied that there's billions of them living out, producing resources for both of these places.
Interesting.
And there are all these political machinations going on. And then there is something else occurring as well.
Okay.
That
cool.
has not been elaborated on. But
such as the ways.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, somebody compared it to Game of Thrones, and at first that comparison really didn't resonate with me at all. But having said, there's all these political machinations going on, and then out beyond the veil is something else occurring.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the comparison that
That's
works,
fair.
right?
Yeah.
Like in Game of Thrones, you have all the houses,
doing you
stabbing
fighting each other, and then there's shit going on beyond the wall.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think that's probably what the comparison was going for.
Cool.
But I don't know, stuff explodes.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say the other one. There's the Marvel shows, but I've actually really been enjoying Gotham as well,
Oh, really?
which is the DC sort of weird. It's sort of a weird retelling, I guess, of it's sort of Batman, but not Batman because it's actually
It's
pre-Batman.
It's when he's a
Right.
kid.
when he's a kid, and so it's actually stars Gordon.
Okay.
And meeting and it's sort of I say it's a retelling because there's a lot of stuff in it that it's not here's all the Batman villains, but they're all kids.
Yeah.
Right.
That would be amazing. I would watch that show.
That-
I'm pretty sure that's
babies.
a cartoon.
I think that was
actually
about
is,
yeah.
because a lot of people who are reminiscent of Batman villains are adult villains in it.
Right.
Show up. There are some kid versions of there's the people like Selena Kyle is roughly
Yeah, roughly.
Bruce Wayne's age and
Yep.
that kind of stuff. But the biggest part about it that I dig is they really got the great Batman via sort of Tim Burton-esque weird, not quite as ridiculous as Tim Burton, but just the weird what time period does this take place in?
Right.
People are on cell phones, but there's Arkham Asylum.
Yeah.
People, there's all this technology, genetic engineering, and all this stuff. but then like there's all this like weird archaic stuff as well. And so it's like, what time period is this? Where is Gotham? Like, there's a neat kind of...
It's like an element of fantasy to it.
Yeah. There's a neat kind of fantastical element to it, which combined with some... they are not beating around the bush in terms of, going into that pretty dark space in terms of bad guys.
Right.
Cool.
Because
there's been a few times where I'm like, oh, what? Okay, they're just going to do that. Oh, okay.
All right, then.
I'm trying to think of what TV shows really hit this year. We've talked about the Marvel ones. There's a couple that have like there was nothing. I'm trying to think. There was nothing really new this year. A lot of returning series. Rick and Morty. Still love that show. And unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to get to talk about it next year. I don't think it'll be back in time. But that show consistently makes me laugh and makes me think. And I suggest you watch it. It can get kind of hardcore. It's not a happy-go-lucky cartoon, but it's definitely worth watching, I think. What else? There was another show this year that I watched, and I can't remember what it was, but...
New House of Cards this year, of course.
New House of Cards this year was kind of... I was okay with it. I will continue to watch it. The next Series 4 comes out in a couple months. I will watch it because I am a big Kevin Spacey fan, and I'm a big fan of Kevin Spacey being Frank Underwood. So I will continue to watch it just for that sole fact. I just love that character. I love how he plays that character. Even if I don't necessarily like that character as much as I used to, I still think he does a phenomenal job portraying him. Something that it's a TV show, but it came out on the 1st of January. But the Sherlock Christmas special or New Year's special or whatever you want to call it. So you haven't seen it, so I won't talk about it very much. But incredibly well done.
I've heard kind of mixed stuff about like I've heard a couple people saying that it was sort of overly complicated.
It was. I don't think it was overly complicated. I think it was more complicated than people. I think people were expecting one thing and got something else. And I know I was. I was expecting what they were advertising, and what we got was something kind of completely different. And I think it doesn't. I think. In the minute afterwards, you're going to go like, what the hell did I, what? But give it like, think about it for just the rest of the day, and you'll get there, I think. And I think you'll enjoy it. And I think they did a really cool job with it. So kudos to Moffat and everybody who works on that one. I think that was really cool. But otherwise, it was just a year of a lot of returning TV that I've talked about a lot in the recent past. I probably watch more broadcast television than anybody else here. Like ABC, like the 4 major network sitcoms. I watch a lot of those with Ashley. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. Some of the good ones that still stand out to me, Modern Family continues to be pretty good. Mom, which is a show that I feel like I shouldn't like. Mainly because it's a show by Chuck Lorre, who's made a bunch of television shows, and none of them like horrifically bad. I don't have the same issues with like Big Bang Theory that a lot of people do. 2.5 Men was whatever, and he's made some other TV shows as well. But Mom is surprisingly interesting, and if you don't know what it's about a daughter and her mother who are recovering alcoholics. And just sort of the lives that they're, transversing, and it's smart and it's funny, and it's not afraid to be serious with itself. Sometimes I hate I hate it when a sitcom has a really serious, really important moment, and then just kind of turns around and makes a joke to remind you that what you're watching is a sitcom, and you should laugh.
Right.
This show doesn't do that. And I love that. I love the fact that it it's generally at the end of the episode, right? At the end of a sitcom, it'll be an important thing. Somebody will die or get seriously ill, or something big will happen in the universe. But they'll turn around and make a really quick joke to make you laugh. This show doesn't do that, and I love that. I think that's really good.
That's good, yeah.
I love the fact that they're just like, no, life is shit sometimes, and go. We'll see you next week. And it's just like, all right, I'm okay with this. So,
all right.
I've been constantly impressed with that show, and I think both. It's been a long year without Jon Stewart and Colbert, but Colbert came back and has been doing the Late Show, and I have been watching almost every day. It's smart. It has the remnants of the Colbert Report left in it, which I think is really great. He doesn't follow the same formula that the previous late night talk shows have done. And to be fair, most of the guys these days have sort of gotten away from the walk out, do the monologue, walk to their desk, and do a couple like little short funny bits, and then interview two guests and have a band. Like that's kind of the cookie cutter late night show. Colbert comes out, he does a really short monologue. He goes over to his desk, sits down, and does like a 5 to 6 minute story, like he would used to do, like you would feel like you would see on like the Daily Show or the Colbert Report. It's often about something. It's often about something serious, gun violence, or something going on in politics and stuff like that. Makes you actually think. It's not just let's play a silly game with celebrities, which, in fairness, Jimmy Fallon does and does really well. I think there's room for that. But I'm glad that Colbert is also not doing that. He has fun with celebrities sometimes, and it's good. But I really enjoy the fact that he's doing the more serious thing. And then I've really been enjoying Trevor Noah in taking over the Daily Show. I don't even think he got off to like a rocky start. I think he dove right in there and did a really good job, and it's only been getting better. And they've at the beginning of the new year they've changed up just little changes, like they've reproduced the intro song. Now when the show starts, it's sort of a quick little walk and talk with him somewhere in the studio, saying what they're going to do on the show that night. Just cool. little changes to sort of give it a different feel. But overall, he came in there and he's continued to make the show that I think needs to exist. He didn't feel like he needed to come in there and completely change the formula, which is good.
Yeah, I think he's doing an exceptional job considering the scope of what he inherited.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine being him. And certainly the staff has been important in that transition. I think if he had come in there with a brand new staff and brand new correspondents and just sort of got rid of everybody, it would have been just a disaster. But he came in there.
I mean, that would have been a totally different thing.
Yeah, and I'm glad they didn't do that. An enormous amount of the staff stick around. A bunch of the correspondents stuck around. He brought in some new people, and they've all been really funny. I've enjoyed. I think he brought in 3 new people, 3 new correspondents, and they've all been really great, which has been awesome. So I've really been enjoying that as well. So
cool.
I think that'll be it for TV for me.
Yeah.
What's next?
Yeah, should we move
do
on to
games, games, books,
well,
albums?
Let's go. Have you read anything this year?
Yeah.
Okay, you guys talk about books. I got nothing. I read literally no books this year.
Do you mind if I start off?
Yeah,
go for it.
This was actually a really slow year for me. Usually I'm a fairly voracious reader, but I haven't gotten through many books in the last couple of years. Probably like fewer than a dozen, actually, which is like quite bad for me. But my favorite this year was a nonfiction book by Ta-Nehisi Coates, who's an American author, called Between the World and Me. And what it is it takes the form of a story or a letter written to his teenage son about the experience of being black in America. And it actually would slot in kind of neatly into the fight the future mode of young adult dystopias, because it has kind of like a storybook feel where his language is very kind of elaborate.
Except that it's actually about the real world.
Yeah, well, like
just
at their
kind
best,
of depressing.
young adult dystopias are about the real world too.
Right.
But yeah, it is this kind of like stinging indictment of race politics in the United States.
Wow.
And it's very kind of like touching and personal. And
He actually does have a teenage son now?
yes,
or-
yeah. And he tells a story about the Trayvon Martin killing when the grand jury was convened and didn't do anything, and like his son was just kind of crushed by it and didn't understand like what was going on,
Yeah.
right? And he kind of like has to go and tell him that this is a dangerous place for you to be in, right? This world is a dangerous place to inherit.
Were they on The Daily Show?
I think he was. Yeah.
I seem to recall, like, this is sounding very familiar, and I'm pretty sure I remember hearing about this. He was like one of the last guests, I think.
I would need to go back and see it, but this book came out in the summer.
Yeah.
Early summer, late spring.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that he was one of the last. I think he was the last author
Okay.
on the show. One
But, like,
in the last couple of weeks.
The title of the book comes from a poem by Richard Wright, and the poem is really good. It's called, Between the World and Me. But it's the idea that, you can be going through your life and you will stumble across something that reminds you that you are separate from the world that you live in, or that there are these events that slip between you and your culture, or the culture that you think you inhabit, and remind you that you don't.
Wow. Cool.
What do you got, Paul?
So, I mean, as you mentioned, I've been doing this Fight the Future podcast with my brother. And, like, tell you the truth, I don't normally... I've sort of gotten out of the habit of reading, like, books. I do as much reading as I've ever done, but it's all, like, articles on the internet and stuff, right? But because we're doing this podcast, I've started reading stuff, but it's been like, young adult
Right.
stuff. But what's really neat about it is like young adult fiction, obviously it's an easy read. But there's often like some really interesting ideas in there.
Right.
Sometimes it's kind of mixed up with stupid stuff.
Right.
But there's some, so like the two books that we've done a couple, and you can look at the podcast and stuff. But two of the books that are really cool that I would actually recommend checking out. Even if you aren't a young adult. There's one called Steelheart that is about it's a world. I think about 5 or 10 years ago, this like comet basically appeared in the sky, and a whole bunch of people got random superpowers.
Sure.
The difference is, as that's not that uncommon a scenario. The difference in this scenario is they're all villains.
Huh.
Basically, the premise, nobody knows whether it's all the bad people got superpowers or whether getting superpowers just
Turns you bad.
makes you an asshole.
Right.
So the story is about it's told to this kid, the perspective of this one kid who's sort of he doesn't have any superpowers or anything, and he's joining this group where his father was killed by a superhero, and so he's or for a supervillain, I guess, and so he's sort of on this obsessive thing about trying to find out more about the supervillains, and joins this group that's sort of dedicated to killing supervillains, basically. The idea being that it's like, we can't wait for, like, everyone was sort of like waiting for the superheroes to also come and help us out.
Yeah.
And it's
they
like,
never do.
they never do.
Nobody shows up.
So it's kind of a neat idea. And then, but the part of the coolness of the book is that there's, all these superpowers. Everyone has like these random superpowers. And so there's, people are always trying to figure out like, what is the extent of somebody's superpower? What are his weaknesses? What are his, all the things what can he do? Like there's one thing that there's like somebody who's has like fire powers, like all this fire stuff, is like the second in command of this big supervillain. But then they realize that that's actually not a supervillain. There's actually a supervillain that's that makes illusions.
Huh.
And has just created this fire supervillain
Right.
in order to direct attention away.
Right,
So
as a
everyone's like, we'll attack him with ice. Go. And it doesn't do anything.
What? That sounds
Which
awesome.
is a
Why
cool
isn't,
idea.
why
Yeah.
isn't that a movie? That sounds sweet.
I know.
Well, I mean, like, young adult fiction is always about the real world, right? And it's like it has this really interesting role as being kind of like it has an educational responsibility because it's like literally adults telling young people about what their responsibility is to the world,
Right.
right?
It's yeah. So I mean, again, that's not a book from 2015, but the other one is the most recent podcast we did. I think it's the most recent podcast we did. A book called it's from a book called Mortal Engines, and the way I like to describe it is this is a book that has it's got big laser gun. It's like set in the future. There's like big city destroying laser guns. There's like airships flying around. There's cyborg robot killer things. But that's totally before the central aspect, which is cities are on giant treads and are running or driving around the world. The first sentence of the book is like, the city of London was stalking the small town. Cities drive around on huge treads and eat each other. Like big cities eat little towns. And we're not talking like...
Wait, like the landmass eats?
So the city is like a big city.
Okay.
But instead of being on the ground, it's on like a plate and there are treads underneath and it drives around and it's got a giant engine.
Okay.
And when it eats, and so there's other cities that have like different types of locomotion.
Okay.
And there'll be like little towns that are just like a couple of buildings together scooting around.
Just a little tricycle.
Yeah, exactly. And then and when we're talking like a city consuming another city, it's not like the borders of the city extend and municipal stuff. The city has huge jaws, and it drives and it goes crunch, 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 and eats the other city and strips it of all its resources. The people who lived on the other city are now citizens of the city that ate their city. And
That sounds dumb.
it's amazing.
That sounds incredibly stupid.
It's really good.
All right.
Trust me on this.
I will believe you. I believe
I highly suggest check it out. It's again, it's not a new book. It's an old series. I think there are 4 books in the series. I haven't read any other books, but we read the first book for the episode, and especially judging from like we did the episode and released it, and like the comments for it are all people being like, "I love that series. Oh man, I love it
awesome.
so much." So it's I'm not introducing it to people for the first time probably, but I had no idea anything about it
Until you did it.
and I was reading it and I was like, "This is amazing."
All right.
Okay, let's do music.
Okay.
Go for it.
I have a top 5 list of my favorite albums this year.
So do I.
Again, these are not like the best albums released this year, but these are my favorites.
That's all we care about.
Purity Ring.
Is this
Another
in order?
Eternity.
Is this 5?
No.
No
this is
particular order?
No particular order.
'Kay.
Purity Ring, Another Eternity.
Okay. Yep.
Which was a sophomore release by Purity Ring, and it just has wonderful production. It's kind of like a pop electronic album, but their lyrics are really phenomenal and interesting and deep, which is kind of an airheaded thing to say, but give them a really good listen. Give them a couple of hours of your time, and kind of just let it sink in.
Yep.
It's very complex. Julia Kent's Asperities. She's a cellist. This is her 3rd album, I think, and it is the first album where she has said that she felt that she wasn't compelled to create something pretty and like
Okay.
like just pleasing.
Is it just
and
her
melodic.
smashing the cello?
No, but it's a very kind of bleak, desolate sounding album.
Okay.
She's a Canadian musician, and it's very kind of wintry and sparse sounding.
That CanCon.
Grimes' Art Angels.
I couldn't get into that one.
Really?
Yeah.
It hooked me from the first.
I tried like 3 times, I think, and it's
that's-
just like, eh.
That's utterly fair. I really enjoyed it. I thought she's grown a lot as an artist. It takes a lot of like pop production tricks specifically and messes with them and kind of exploits them and redefines them in really odd and interesting ways. If you're a music nerd, you'll really enjoy it, and if you're not, find a music nerd, and they will tell you all about how it works.
Why you're wrong.
Well, Prurience, Frozen Niagara Falls. It's a double album, and what struck me about this is for a long time I've been saying, like, 2 years ago, I think, Boards of Canada released Tomorrow's Harvest, which I described at the time as like the soundtrack for a 1970s science fiction movie that was never made about the end of the world. And looking at that now, I realize, in the context of this album, that it was just a soundtrack for present day.
Right.
Because I think Prurience, Frozen Niagara Falls operates in a very similar mode, where it uses a lot of of the synth tricks that you would identify with like a 70s or 80s science fiction movie, to create a very kind of bleak, end of the world feeling album.
Cool.
And there's like weird elements of like Christian millenarianism and all kinds of good stuff going on in here. A lot of screaming and discordance, and a lot of very pretty moments as well.
Cool.
And then finally, Colin Stetson and Sarah Neufeld's "Never Were the Way She Was," which is a collaboration between Sarah Neufeld is a string player, Colin Stetson plays bass saxophone, and again, it's another kind of very experimental contemporary classical piece.
Cool.
That does a lot of really neat and fun things.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cam with the legit list. My list. All right, so number 5, the Hamilton soundtrack. Number 4, the Hamilton soundtrack. Number 3, the Hamilton soundtrack. Number 2, the Hamilton soundtrack. Number 1, the Hamilton soundtrack. Yeah, that's about right.
Okay.
Okay, so
Maybe I should listen to that.
Apparently I
here's
missed out.
oh, you guys need to listen to this. It's so good. I completely agree with you on Purity Ring. That might actually be my favorite album of the year, all out.
Okay.
It's close. I mean, to be honest, I would actually put the Hamilton soundtrack at number 1. I listened to that for the first time just after Desert Bus, like literally a couple days after Desert Bus, and it's not all I've listened to for the last 2 months, but it's pretty close. It's really phenomenal. You've probably heard people talk about it. It's a musical that is on Broadway right now. It's about the life of Alexander Hamilton. It's like a hip hop opera thing. Hip hopera, I suppose. The thing that I love about this musical, and the thing I love about musicals that have the majority of their story told through song, it means that when you listen to the soundtrack, when you listen to that original cast album, you get to feel like you've seen the show.
Right.
Because there are definitely musicals out there where you'll listen to the songs and you'll pick up sort of the overarching idea of the show, but you're always missing those in-between songs.
Right.
But with Hamilton, there's not a lot, from what I understand, in between the songs.
Okay.
A lot of it takes place in the actual music, which I think is phenomenal. So that is probably my favorite album of the year. Another album that I really enjoyed that came out very early last year was the new Slater-Kinney album.
Oh, right. Cities, no.
Yeah, I honestly cannot remember what it's called.
Yeah, no, that was really good.
I really enjoyed it. A lot of people seems to kind of, I think because it came out so early in the year, I didn't see it on as many top like 10, 50, 100 lists that I've been looking at over the last couple weeks as I kind of expected. It's been there, but it's been a lot further down the list than I think it should be. I thought it was really good. I thought it was really awesome that they were able to come back, 10 years or something like that, an enormous amount of time after their previous album, and we're like, you know what, we're going to do this again, and it's going to be awesome. And I would love to see them live someday. I've seen them. I've watched an enormous amount of their live performances online, and I think they're just awesome in on a live show. So I'd love to see them for myself. But for me, it was Slater-Kinney and that Purity Ring album. the non-musical albums of the year for me that I think were the number 1 and 2. There were a bunch of other albums, and I might list some of them in the comments below when I post this video. But nothing really stood out for me like those 3 albums this year. Paul?
I don't.
You don't really, yeah, that's fair.
Okay.
I really highly suggest you guys listen to Hamilton.
Right.
I know you would love it.
I was actually just thinking when you're like, I remember as a kid, like we had tons of like just my family had like lots of musicals, Gilbert and Sullivan, all those musicals on tape and on record and stuff. And I remember listening to them as a kid, and I had this whole like mental image of what the play was or what the musical was. And then as I got older, when I actually got to see them, I was like, oh, that's what that is.
Yep.
That's what they're saying. Oh, that makes much more sense than what I thought.
Also, very quickly, speaking about music, a moment of silence for RDO. Okay, that's good. It was my music streaming service of choice, mainly because it was the first one to be available in Canada and have a really solid catalog.
Yeah.
And because Spotify, while now in Canada and is also the one that I'm currently using, didn't come in Canada for probably about 6 to 8 months after RDO opened up shop. So I kind of just stuck by RDO up until the very end there.
Does Spotify have a reasonable catalog?
Spotify definitely has a I have not run into anything that I found on RDO that I can't find on Spotify. My taste in music is not tremendously deep. There is definitely albums that I will listen to that do not hit the mainstream, but those are all there as well. I think the streaming services know that they need to have deep catalogs if they want to succeed. So I mean, the options nowadays are basically Apple Music or Spotify. In terms of like a paid service, like I know there's Pandora and Last.fm and all that sort of stuff, but
Pandora doesn't work in Canada.
Yeah, Pandora doesn't work in Canada. I don't even think Last.fm works in Canada.
It used to. Does it not anymore?
I don't think it does. But Spotify has been really good, and I will continue to use it, mainly because it worked with my Sonos, because Apple Music didn't until like 2 weeks ago. So maybe I'll switch over, but I have no allegiance to Apple Music right now, so I'm good. All right, let's talk about video games.
Video games.
Wrap this thing up. Cam?
Bloodborne.
Oh, really? Just in terms of like hours spent. Yeah, I mean, really. Even if you hated it.
Yeah, no, I actually didn't hate it. It's very rarely that a game is exactly the right difficulty to piss me off in a way that makes me want to
continue
push forward.
Yep.
Right, just that correct amount of challenge that lets you know that success is absolutely possible, and
just not for you.
Yeah, but when you hit it, you will have developed a proficiency for it.
Right.
And usually I say that like I don't want to have to build a skill set to play a game. That I'm playing a game, I'm having a diversion, and I generally don't want to build up things like muscle memory for a video game, and for this one I did. That's how much I enjoyed it.
That's fair.
So if you have watched me stream, you have basically watched me play all of my video games for this year, because I barely play video games at home.
That's fair.
Anymore, because I've tried doing things where I'm like, playing XCOM at home and playing it on stream, and I get the 2 save files crossed in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah, playing the same game at home that you're playing on stream, it can be difficult.
Yeah, it sucks. So if you are watching me stream, you are watching me play new games. Like, that's where I do the bulk of my gaming now. So we take that journey together.
That's nice. I'll just rattle off some of them. Rocket League came out this year. Super good. I feel like that game burned incredibly bright for a pretty short amount of time.
Like a rocket?
Like a rocket. I think there's still definitely interest in that game, but overall, maybe it's already sort of had its peak and it's come back down. But Rocket League was phenomenal. Mario Maker. That was a very impressive game.
Yeah.
A game I think a lot of people have been waiting for a long time to see.
I mean, whether it's even a game could be argued.
Yes, I mean,
it's more of a game maker.
Yeah, but I mean,
well,
then you can
making is the game itself.
Yeah,
yeah,
right. It's true.
I mean, they do try to sort of gamify it to some extent.
I thought Mario Maker was interesting in that it does what a lot of gamers do kind of explicitly, which is play against the developers, right? Like, you don't necessarily play the game, you play against the people who made the game, and that's how you find out how to break the game.
Yeah, that's true.
And Mario Maker is explicitly about that.
Yep.
It's, I mean, one thing, one actual very interesting thing that I found with Mario Maker is one of my favorite games this year. The sort of, as I think of them kind of together, is Kirby's Epic Yarn and Yoshi's Woolly World.
Yeah.
Yoshi's Woolly World, I think I enjoyed more because it's harder. It's actually, there's a couple of sections in Yoshi's Woolly World that are like straight up brutal, like because there's like bonus areas. There's like a bonus level in each world, and those bonus levels, like we're getting into like the like special levels in the original Mario World, like the like tubular,
right?
And all those ones.
Right.
It's like those things that, I mean, I don't want to say it's not for kids because of course kids are the ones who have the time to master this, but it's tough. But there's definitely quite a few times in especially in Yoshi's Woolly World where I'd like get into a situation where I'd be like, there'd be like something there. I would like walk into a room and there'll be like a shell or something that like goes like comes down. There's like a thing that's shooting shells that come down and bounce off or something, and I'll be like, this is a Mario Maker level, right? like there's certain things that like I wouldn't be surprised if I mean the timeline doesn't quite work, but I wouldn't be surprised if there were aspects of Mario Maker, the things that are showing up in Mario Maker a lot, and combinations of different Mario elements,
Right.
that the original the Mario team hasn't doesn't know anything about or hadn't thought of, and we will now see showing up in other Mario games.
That'd be sweet.
It'll be like Last Starfighter. You'll be like, you made the perfect Mario game. Now you have to like go on to you get hired as a
level builder,
as like
As a
super low level. It's like you get to be a level tester.
You're in QA.
Hooray!
Yay! Aw.
A couple other games. Downwell was super impressive. Sort of a game that kind of came out of nowhere, at least for me. You can get it on your phone. You can get it on Steam. I highly recommend you get it on Steam with a controller. Definitely a lot easier to control, but super enjoyable, very addictive, and a lot of fun. A game that I got at the very end of the year, and I have played a little bit of, not as much as I would like, and it kind of made me dust off my Wii U, which is kind of the case, I think, for everybody, was Splatoon.
Yes.
That game,
wow.
It came out earlier this year, and
you are late to the Splatoon party.
Yeah, and made a really big splash. And again, I feel like maybe like Rocket League, it kind of burned super bright there for a while. But I hopped on there when I got back from my Christmas break. Ashley got it for me for Christmas and plugged it into my Wii U, and I've put in I've probably only played maybe 5 or 6 hours in the last couple weeks. Just been busy with a move and everything, but it's been super fun. Really enjoy it, and I really want to get into a situation where I can play with people I know,
Right.
And get some voice chat going on, because that is definitely something I've noticed. In terms of my video game playing habits over the last couple years, is I still love playing video games, but I much prefer to play them with people, especially people I know, and especially when I can talk with them.
Yeah.
That is the ideal situation for me to be in to really enjoy video games.
Splatoon
Really replicating that couch co-op feel.
Yeah.
Or the
Splatoon
LAN feel.
really felt to me like it was the best Dreamcast game that was never released.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know why it felt like a Dreamcast game to me, but
Yep.
it definitely had... I can't even really articulate it.
Yeah. So definitely a good game. And there was one more game, and now it has slipped my mind. Oh, it's a game that you are playing on stream right now, Ori and the Blind Forest.
Ori and the Blind Forest.
That was the first game that I downloaded and played when I got my new laptop earlier this year. on Steam, and man, that game it's gorgeous.
Yeah, it is. It is very pretty, which kind of lulls you into a false sense of security, because you're like, oh, this is kind of a pretty art game. This is fun. Oh my god, I just died 5 times.
Yeah, it's hardcore. But
I'm giving the old death button a good workout.
Yeah, exactly.
The one game that I really wanted to play this year that I didn't get around to was Undertale.
Yeah,
I've heard a lot about it, and I need to play it, if only to fucking situate myself.
Yep,
within
that's fair.
What everyone else is talking about.
Yeah, that game.
The same reason I watched Breaking Bad.
I saw that game on a lot of lists, a lot of year-end lists.
Yeah, it's one of those games where it's like the actual from what I understand, the actual technology stuff is not that impressive. Like, it's not very sophisticated, but using it to tell a really a story in a really kind of interesting way, and making it sort of more than, it's one of those games that doesn't really work like probably a lot of people, and I think myself included. I saw like screenshots of it, or even demoed like videos of it.
Yeah,
it's just like, okay, sure, whatever. But obviously, there's from the ridiculously positive stuff that seems to be coming around on all the. I love there's an article in, I think it was Polygon, that was the title of the article was "Why Undertale is the best game of the year and all my coworkers are idiots."
Love that article title. Oh dear. All right.
Okay.
I think that's going to do it for us this year. For this year, we're never going to talk to you guys again. We'll probably get in a couple people next week to do their version. We can probably get Graham and Alex and Ian in here for sure, and they can give you their.
Give all the same answers.
I'm always curious to see. I mean, we see each other all the time. We're constantly talking to each other, so I do think there'll probably be some overlap.
We do the Family Feud thing where they have to do different answers.
That's true, exactly. Since they start talking about they start talking about Star Wars. We're like, nope, you can't talk about Star Wars.
Nope.
You can't talk about all the big popular games of the year.
You can't have liked Star Wars. Sorry. We already did that one.
But thanks so much for joining us on the inaugural episode of the LRRcast at Moonbase Delta in our new fancy set in Studio A. Right? Oh, crap, I already forgot how to do it. Wait. Oh, yeah, it's the middle fingers. Oh, yeah, right, you got to hide these in Moonbase Delta.
And it's also an A for Studio A.
It's true. Oh, yeah, it is true.
Well, you have to...
That's, yeah. Anyways, you figure that out while I say thank you to everybody who has donated to Cam's penis. I mean, Patreon.com.
Thank you to everyone who's donated to Cam's penis.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's a whole different website.
That's a whole other thing. Patreon.com/LoadingReadyRun. We are in this space because of you and your incredibly generous contributions over the last year and going into this year, and the reaction and outpouring of support for our load-bearing wall that will be going up in a couple months has been tremendous. So thank you all so much for doing that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, head over to LoadingReadyRun.com. There's a blog post on it. It's like 1 or 2 down. It's right there. Just look for the big blue wall with names on it. Give it a read. You'll find out all you need to know about it. And we will talk to you guys next week for the next episode of the LRRcast.
Bye.
Bye.